There he is, the man, the legend, Carl Jha. How you doing, Carl? You doing all right this morning, man? Wait a minute, give me 1 second. Let me get you set up right with the volume. There we are. How you doing this morning, Carl? You doing all right?
Good. It's actually evening my time, but it's always good to see you, Jamal.
Yep. Oh, I'm sorry. I always get that straight. This American point of view. American point of view. No, man, I'm glad you could join me, especially at somewhat short notice. I hit you yesterday, and you were very gracious and accepting. So thank you very much. How's it going there this evening so far?
It's good. It's good. Like I said, anytime you want to have me talk about China, I'm game because this is my passion. I can talk about China forever.
Which so we can geek out on this all day. All right, so I want to make sure, I want to do a sound check before we start. Can you guys hear me okay? Is the volume loud enough between Carl and I? No issues so far? Come on, let me know. Excellent. All right, and just to give people who heads up on who I'm talking to, I'm joined with Carl Jha. He is host of Silk and Steel podcast focused on China and surrounding regions and their history, culture, and politics. You can follow Carl on Twitter at Carl Jha. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Steel Silk In, and subscribe and support the podcast at patreon.silk and steel podcast. Excellent. And everyone is giving me the all clear on the sound. So great. Carl, recently, North Korea had a missile test. Now, this was also in line where Russia also had a missile test where they were testing their nuclear arsenal. But I want to go to North Korea for a bit. Why is North Korea having this kind of missile test? And apparently, it was one of their longest. I mean, the thing stayed in flight for like 58 minutes. Apparently, it was on a vertical trajectory more than anything else. Why is North Korea doing this? What were they trying to get across to the rest of the world, to South Korea, to their enemies, or broadly in general? What is this message?
Well, first of all, North Korea is a nuclear power now. We know they have tested nuclear devices. Now they are proven their delivery capability. So for North Korea, they don't need intercontinental missiles to hit Seoul. Their goal is not to target South Korea. They don't need ICBMs to hit South Korea. They don't even need ICBM to hit Japan. So this is not for this. They're not sending the signal to South Korea or Japan. They're sending signal to United States. And as people recall, there were several countries that were having nuclear program at one time. There was Gaddafi in Libya. There was Saddam in Iraq. Guess what happens after Saddam and Gaddafi got rid of their nuclear program? I mean, whereas United States, so far, they have been talking very belligerently about North Korea, but they never really made a move because North Korea has nukes. And now they have delivery capabilities. In fact, there has been several rounds of nuclear tests all around the world. There was, as you mentioned, there was Russia tested them, North Korea tested them. China just launched an ICBM a couple months ago, towards South Pacific. Yeah. Everyone is now sending a signal to United States, like, look, okay, we're also nuclear powers. We also have the capability to deliver them. Don't just think that it's going to be one-way street. It's not like just like U.S. is going to hit China, North Korea, or Russia. No, we can hit you back. Yeah. I mean, this is what the signal they're trying to send. To remind U.S. don't do anything foolish.
Well, if you remember, I forget the person who said it, but at one point they made the point of saying the Gaddafi option in relation to North Korea, and you can imagine that North Korea flipped out. And, that's the problem in the U.S. in general when dealing with and talking about North Korea. They act like he is belligerent, he's incompetent, he is unpredictable, he does this stuff for no reason, etc. And they always leave out the fact that we are having these tests with South Korea as if we were doing a decapitation strike on North Korea, in which case they continuously freak out and say, cut it out. Trump was willing, despite all of the bellicosity and everything else when he first got in, to make a deal in this case When Joe Biden gets in office, Joe Biden scraps it. They go back to standard, and all of a sudden the missiles start flying once again. What a mistaken opportunity. I would imagine on some level also that this is a demonstration to South Korea. I mean, there were provocations going back and forth between the two, where North Korea basically said that a drone from South Korea landed on North Korean territory. Am I getting that right?
Well, I mean, okay, like North Korea understands this correctly. This is not just between them and South Korea. South Korea's main military backer is United States. In fact, U.S. still militarily occupies South Korea. It has tens of thousands of troops on the Korean soil. And in times of war, the all South Korean military has to answer to U.S. command. That U.S. takes over South Korean military in times of war. That's how it's laid out in the treaties. So this is why they are, by sending a signal to United States. By extension, of course, they're also putting on South Korea on notice, because the South Korean president has been, just debasing himself, trying to please his master in Washington. We all remember, that performance he put on, the musical show he put on in Washington when he saw Biden. And, and he was not very popular for that in South Korea either, because Washington tried to form this trilateral military alliance between South Korea, Japan, and U.S. to counter North Korea and China. But a lot of the people in South Korea are questioning, why are we forming a military alliance with Japan, our former colonizers? They didn't like that. And this was like very unpopular. But this is what U.S. is trying to push, shoving down the throat of South Korean people. We in the mainstream media in United States and much of the so-called collective West, when we talk, as you mentioned, when we talk about North Korea, we always say like, oh, their leaders irrational, they're crazy, they can't be reasoned with. This is the same reasoning they ascribe to Saddam, to Gaddafi, basically anyone the U.S. does not like and have plans for regime change. U.S. makes no secret about how they want regime change in North Korea. I mean, they said the same thing about Kim Jong-un's dad, also how he was a crazy dictator, that just has to go. And this is not how you conduct diplomacy, right? I mean, the U.S. actually had a nuclear deal with North Korea back in the Clinton era. The deal was that the United States will provide them with nuclear reactors. So in return, North Korea will give up their nuclear program. But under George W. Bush, under John Bolton, they pulled the rug straight out of that deal. U.S. backed out, put the sanctions back on. So that's why North Korea went ahead and exploded their nuclear device. And then, you have, as you mentioned, Trump went to meet Kim Jong-un, and then Biden pulls out. It shows that U.S. is not reliable. You can't seriously negotiate. How can you negotiate with somebody in good faith? And you're just one election away from all the deal being thrown out again. Trump did that with the Iran deal, by the way, that the Obama signed. So how how can anybody,
Trump pulled out. Iran stuck with the deal for another year, and of course they increased sanctions, murdered Soleimani, et cetera, et cetera. No, you're absolutely right. It's amazing to me that these countries, whether it's Taiwan, which is part of China, or whether it's South Korea, would allow itself to be used as a pivot point for U.S. interests, especially Taiwan. You would think that looking at Ukraine, they could see the fate of proxies in regards to these wars, especially against a country the size with the economic and industrial base of China. It's super weird to me. The Taiwanese government, I'm curious what goes on in regards to the population itself, in regards to their point of view towards China, especially do they fully accommodate that what the U.S. basically wants is to have a proxy and a pivot point against China, and would use Taiwan to do it? Meaning, does the government fully get that, and does the population get that?
Well, I mean, people on Taiwan, they want peace. They don't want war. And I have to remind people, the current sitting leader on Taiwan, he received he did not receive majority of votes on Taiwan. He just received a plurality, and the only reason he won about 40% of the vote.
Mhm.
60% of the people voted for other candidates because it was a three-way race. So
Yeah.
the opposition was split. The opposition to his party was that other 60% was split between two candidates. That's how he won. 60% of the Taiwan population did not vote for him. He does
Mhm.
not have an overwhelming mandate at
I
all.
see.
And majority of people on Taiwan, they just want to have peace. They're perfectly
Yeah.
fine with status quo as is. Peace, trade with mainland China only helps the Taiwan economy. They want jobs. They just want people all across the world they want a better future for their
Better
children. They
life.
want a better educational opportunities. They want better lives. They don't want war. What US is doing is actually very dangerous. They're ratcheting up tensions in Taiwan by pushing for all these arms sales. By the
Mhm.
way, nobody in Taiwan actually believes those arms sales directly helps Taiwan to defend itself from mainland China, because they are still they're still thinking, okay, we have to pay this as a protection money to the U.S.
Pretty much.
military industrial complex, so they will be friendly to us. That's how they see it.
Yeah.
Like, because a lot of the weapons they're buying doesn't even make sense. Like, they're buying Abrams tanks. Like, what the hell are you going to need Abrams tanks for on an island? By the time you need to use a tank, it's already too late. That means the PLA has already landed. So they are
This puts
being
them in
pushed.
of a mob deal. It's like, hey, that's a nice building you got there. It would be ashamed if anything happened to it. It's one of those things, right? And it's like, if you buy our weapons and up price, by the way, those things are expensive. And I have a hard time seeing how it's going to defend against a country the size and industrial capacity of China. I just don't see how it works.
And United States do not sell top of the line items to Taiwan because they are afraid that those items could anytime be passed through the hands to mainland China if reunification happens. So they never sell
Yep.
the good stuff. They only sell the outdated but very expensive items. And they have openly talked about, in times of war, what they're going to do. They're going to bomb TSMC. They're going to bomb Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation, the mainstay of Taiwan economy. So they say, well, we can't leave that to the communists. So if the war breaks out, we gotta blow up TSMC first. They talk about this publicly. How are they defending Taiwan? How are they helping Taiwan's cause? I mean, this is again, like, we have the example of Ukraine, like
Yeah.
a proxy war being waged against another of U.S. enemy, Russia, and Ukraine is being wrecked. People on Taiwan, they don't want to be wrecked like Ukraine. They can see what's unfolding Ukraine right now. It's just that U.S. has its own, it's supporting its own candidates on Taiwan. The current leader and his party, they're like more pro-U.S. than the other
Yeah.
parties, so they are the one who got the U.S. backing, and they serve a very useful purpose, which is ratchet up the tensions to continue to justify
Mhm.
U.S. military presence in East Asia. That's all it's about. U.S. is all about maintaining its empire in East Asia, maintaining its military presence in South Korea, in Japan, in the Philippines, and the justification, Taiwan. Because
Yeah.
China is aggressive, so we have to maintain all these forward postures. We have to maintain all the We have to put missiles in the Philippines. We have to put missiles in South
Mhm.
Korea. But just imagine, and they're selling missiles to Taiwan right now. And just imagine if China have deployed missiles on Cuba. All Washington will flip out. Back in JFK's era, U.S. almost nuked the world because the
Yeah.
Soviet put missiles on Cuba. But yet, U.S. now they think, they're saying we're helping preserving peace by selling this quote unquote defense missiles to Taiwan. How can missiles be defensive? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, this is some 1984 stuff, peace through war and all of this other nonsense. And that's the wild part about the Ukraine war, right? That we were willing to end the world in order to keep those missiles out of Cuba. Those missiles were already in Cuba, but either way, we were willing to end the world if they didn't get moved. I mean, we were willing to have a blockade and all that stuff. And then when they do the same thing in Ukraine, we're like, we don't understand why Russia is freaking out about this hostile military organization with this massive military being on the border of Russia. It's just bizarre. And now they're doing the same thing with salami slicing, one China policy. What is the relationship because the relationship between North Korea and Russia clearly has increased, especially after Russia warned South Korea, don't give missiles. South Korea says, okay, we're not going to give missiles, but we will give them to the US, in which case they would give them to Ukraine. All right. And then North Korea starts being brought into the fold of Russia. He takes Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un looks like a kid in a candy store, going all around Russia, seeing the missile capacity meeting. I get the sense that North Korea had a upgrade to their capability in this kind of asymmetric warfare that Russia may be thinking if things come to the point of a war, where North Korea in a strategic partnership with North Korea may be on some level a strategic ally. What is the relationship? And the reason why I'm bringing up Russia first, I'm curious between the relationship between China and North Korea in lieu of the relationship between North Korea and Russia, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, Russia, North Korea, and China, they all had a friendly relation stretch all the way back to the founding of North Korea back in 1940, right after World War II. After World War II, it's the Soviet Red Army that 1 million Soviet Red Army troops rode across the border. They pushed the Japanese Imperial Army out of Manchuria, out of Northern Korea. And at that time, United States State Department scrambled and said, please stop at 38th parallel. We don't want you to go any further. and Stalin agreed. They said, okay, we'll wait. We'll stop the Red Army at 38th parallel. We'll let the Japanese colonizer to hang out in the southern tip for a little while for the Americans to arrive. And that's what happened. The division of the Korea was not supposed to be permanent. It was supposed to be like a Soviet occupation zone, U.S. occupation zone, the same like what happened in Germany. But then what happened was most of the people in Korea at the time, especially out of the resistance fighter who resist the Japanese colonization, they came together and they wanted to form the People's Republic of Korea. And United States was dead set against it because they're like, oh, they're all commies. They're all commies. We can't have that. So they supported their own candidate. A lot of them were straight out Japanese collaborators, and this is what eventually led to the Korean War. And both Soviet Union and China were firmly on the side of North Korea. The Chinese sent their 1 million man army into Northern Korea, and the Soviet later they provided air support in what's called the Mig Valley in the northern half of North Korea. So the secret air battle wasn't revealed until the collapse of the Soviet Union. Archives were open, but yes. So Soviet Union and China always supported North Korea, and North Korea, they stayed neutral during the Sino-Soviet split of 1960. So they're okay with both sides. So they maintain a friendly relationship with both China and the Soviet Union. And that friendship lasted through the Cold War. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, Russia maintained the same friendly relationship with North Korea. So Russia and North Korea, they have the mutual defense treaty. Like the one side is obligated to come to the other's defense in case of war, and now they just have more reason to work closer together because the United States is putting screw on both countries, and North Korea just happened to have a huge stockpile of weapons. They have a huge, to prepare to defend them against possible U.S. launch attacks. They just happen to have a lot of conventional arsenal that's sitting around unused, and now they're shipping them to Russia, especially artillery shells, which has been consuming very quickly on the Ukraine battlefront, and in return, Russia can help them to upgrade their missile technology. And
one more thing on that, and we have about 2 minutes. So there's this reporting in the West that, oh, the North Koreans are are in the Ukraine war. And, this doesn't quite make sense, right? Because all things being equal, it's Ukraine that is running out of manpower. It's Ukraine that doesn't have the weaponry. I mean, Zelensky has been complaining about this. Not to mention, we've all seen the videos of them grabbing people on the street and throwing them in a truck and throwing them out on the front lines. But is it possible that the deal that was made was, we will give you shells, all of these things that you basically need for the war? Because, as you said, it's a war. It's, World War II style war, updated to modern conditions. But was the deal for weapons for experience? Meaning, we haven't fought a war, meaning North Korea, we haven't fought a war in like 50 years, 60 years. And you are getting a ton of experience in regards to the Ukraine conflict. And so we want our people to get updated on procedures, methods, battlefield conditions, and those type of things. Not that they're fighting the war, but they're basically using Russia meaning Russian trainers, to understand technology, equipment, current battlefield. Is that what's going on? Because I don't buy for a moment that they need North Korean soldiers, nor do I buy that the North Koreans are out there fighting the Ukrainians.
So it's normal to have countries send observers into a third party war in order to observe and learn the latest battle techniques. I mean, U.S. Did that. And everybody does it. But right now, all the so-called evidence that's emerged about North Korea sending soldiers to Russia, all the ones I have seen are Laotian soldiers in the Russian Far East participating in the Laos 2024, the Laos Russia military exercise, and they just dub it. They just rip out the Laotian soundtrack and dub it in some Korean dialogue into it. That's the best evidence I've seen so far for so-called North Korean soldiers in Russia. So unless we see something more concrete, I'm gonna put a large bucket of salt into that claim.
Yeah.
Because, so far we haven't seen anything, concrete evidence to suggest there's even any North Korean military presence on the Ukraine war.
Carl, man, always appreciate your updates. And like you said, we can geek about this stuff all day. I agree with you. I'm fascinated with this because often we don't necessarily get the point of view of China in this country. We tend to demonize, especially world leaders and world leaders who don't necessarily bow down. Carl Jha, host of Silk and Steel podcast, focus on China and surrounding regions and their history, culture, and politics. You can follow Carl on Twitter at Carl Jha. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Steel Silk In, and subscribe to the podcast on patreon.com, Silk and Steel. Carl, man, you have my deepest appreciation. I'll talk to you soon. Have a good one, man. All